All right, I'm back. Okay.
Okay.
So, I sent you the email about the questions, but I have a quick question before we start. So, how do you think that mindfulness affected your everyday life?
Beginning at what stage of the,
I would say once you were released, once you got out of incarceration.
well, the mindfulness, how it helped me as far as adjust and how it helped me to transition back into society. Well, from my training, being a former incarcerated member, a participant of network in the prison, that's where I began to learn the mindfulness techniques um, and disciplines. So when I came home, was released, I began to apply that mindfulness to individuals who I was fortunate enough to interview for as employment and housing is concerned. And as I'm listening to them, their questions, their answers to my questions, assessing their background, it forced me to become mindful that these individuals came from where I came from, right? So in essence, it helped me, the mindfulness helped me to be able to function more better as an outreach coordinator. Let me give you an example. So as I operate in my capacity as an outreach coordinator for network, helping individuals who are formerly incarcerated, I myself put myself in a situation, I'm still in prison, trying to help myself get out. What can I do to provide a more of a smooth transition for myself once I release? So I'm out here connecting myself to all the resources I need to make that transition possible, right? With the goal of not reoffending or not going back to prison. So what do I have to do for myself while I'm out here when I get home?
No,
So
I
I apply that
gotcha.
same mindfulness, I apply that same concept or that discipline when I'm helping individuals, as if I'm helping myself. So it becomes more easier to find the resources, the connections, and because my job is to seek ways to reduce the recidivism rate of incarceration so that taxpayers can save millions and millions of dollars. For the simple fact, it costs approximately between $65,000 to $70,000 a year to incarcerate one person in the state of New York. So being mindful of that fact and being mindful of me wanting for myself that I want for others, it allows me to function in a way whereas becoming more helpful, not only to myself, but also to society. Because I'm mindful of the things that could possibly cause a person to go back to prison. Very mindful of that. So keeping that in mind, I strive to find ways to prevent that from happening using mindfulness techniques.
Thank you. All right. So my first question is, would you mind telling me a little bit about yourself? So you can start from wherever you're comfortable, either all the way back from the beginning or wherever you'd like to start.
Well, I always like to deal with the now, the present,
Yeah.
because that encompasses everything, right? I can go to the future with it. I can go to the past with it, but it's
Yep.
as of right now, who I am. I'm a gentle person, friendly, kind. Uh, I love human beings. And so I chosen as part of my occupation, human services, outreach coordinator. Perfect job for me. It's a perfect job for me because number one, I never knew that I would be released into society and become an outreach coordinator. I wasn't really consciously prepared for this type of work. I spent 25 years of incarceration focusing on liberating myself or exonerating myself from a crime of murder for which I never committed. And so that compelled me to focus more or less on knowing the law, going to school. I became a certified paralegal because I wanted to correct the wrong that was committed against me. And I had no attorney who was willing to help me. So I know I'm going all around, but it all deals with the now. So my whole goal was to come home and start a law firm, even though having this alleged conviction on my record, it would have been very difficult for me to become a member of the bar, right? And that's another reason why I'm fighting so hard to get my case overturned and exonerate myself. As of this day, 30 years later, I'm still fighting by myself, no lawyers. But I ended up, so during the later years of my incarceration, prior to being released, I was in a network program at Otisville Correctional Facility. I landed there in 2015. And that's where I was released in 2017 from Otisville. But being in the network program, like I mentioned earlier at the beginning, where mindfulness came in at, it came in through this program, the network in the community program. And so that discipline that I learned, it allowed me to stay focused on what I wanted to do when I get out in the world. But lo and behold, that environment is a positive environment for human development, where individuals come together to help themselves and each other. You know, it's a different type of prison environment. It's not like a prison where you're in that environment. It's a growth-filled environment. And so slowly but surely, my passion of wanting to come home and open this law firm, it started like subsiding a little bit. And I got more or less into programming, like learning about how to meditate and expressing your stress and concerns with individuals who you don't even know. Whereas your trust level is actually allowing it to, because when you're in prison, you don't trust nobody, or your guards is always up. But I began to learn this was a safe place. Network was a safe place. So as I began to learn various disciplines from this program, my focus began to shift away from becoming a lawyer or coming home and open up a law firm. I didn't know where I was at. Then the executive director of the program, her name was Ann Williams, closer to my release, she observed my leadership in that program, because I started off as a regular, just a member. Then I became a group leader. Then I became the co-coordinator. Then I ended up becoming the residential coordinator, right? And I began to understand that can only be made possible because there's something inside of me that I wasn't really aware of. And that environment, exposed it. It kind of like brought it out, because it left room for me to explore all possibilities, because it was a safe place where I could lower my guards. That's the way network program is designed. And so all I know is I'm structuring, organizing, making sure I was like a commander chief of 49 souls, where they all had to rely on me for guidance. So it was an honor to serve in that capacity as well, to the extent that when I was released, the executive director, Ann Williams, who passed away, she tapped me on the shoulder for employment day one. So that was a good look. You know what I mean? Because I was kind of concerned about my employment. When I get home, I'm like, wow, where am I gonna get this job from? So that was a blessing within itself, right? Then, and just to note, I was living in Nassau County, and my work was in the Bronx. I had to report to the Bronx. So that's a journey within itself. And that's the as of right now, I have, for my first time in my life, got a true experience in the city, city life. And it's a hell of an experience. So um, she said, listen, Nahshon, I need you in the office in the Bronx, and I need you to build me an office of outreach. I'm like, huh? I had no clue. Had no clue what she was talking about. Outreach, I'm not, but not knowing that all of those elements was inside of me, because when I was in prison, I also became like the liaison committee chairman. I was the president of the inmate organization, lifers organization, and I was the grievance rep. So I was getting groomed, unbeknown for this job that's going to be lined up for me in the future. So what I did was I Googled, outreach coordinator, find out what is the responsibilities of outreach coordinator and what is outreach. So after I started getting these working definitions, I started to build an office around the meaning of outreach and outreach coordinator. And I typed everything out, Xeroxed everything out, and then I'm making sure that I made it into like a format for me to follow based upon the definition. And 4 years later, I have over 170 clients. They all employed. They all have housing, and we're growing. I have a project, the Mindfulness Resolution Project, collaboration between the Office of Outreach Network with Adelphi, making this possible, this interview. There's a host of other things that, I am able to take my experience and explore this new world. For me, it's a new world, right? After spending a quarter of a century of incarceration, coming home at the age of 52, to me, this is a new world. But I'm ready for the challenges. And I love the challenges because the challenges are only a test for me to see how strong I have become from the conditions that I had to endure while confined over 25 years. See what I'm built, see how I'm built. And I feel that I'm built very well for the occasion.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Just how your attitude is just so positive, and after everything that you've been put through, being incarcerated for so long for something that you didn't even do. It's really amazing, because it's good that you're teaching it, because not a lot of people know about that outreach and how important it really is to then get your mind on the right path for life after incarceration. Some people feel like they're so blocked, but mindfulness really does open up your vision, mindset 100% to then know that there's other opportunities. You don't have to feel so trapped, like you're not alone, So I'm so thankful that I am able to interview you, because just like your knowledge is so amazing, and other people really need to have the same outlook using mindfulness on life. So
that's our mission, right,
yeah.
Victoria? That's what this is all about. Because at the end of the day, we use our voices to bring about change, positive change. We know what type of world that we are living in. A lot of darkness, a lot of death, but it's on the outside of us. And we can keep it. It's our choice to keep it on the outside. Just be mindful of it. Like, it's not my problem, that's your problem. I'm not going to allow your problem become my problem. I may have empathy, seeing what type of resources I can muster up or I can collect, because I'm mindful of what you're going through. And my compassion for humanity will drive me to see what I can do to help you, because I'm very mindful of what you're going through. You see what I'm saying? So operating in that fashion works for me, because I believe that we all live in our own worlds, existing within one world, but we have our own worlds that we live in, and we can perfect our own world, which will actually become complemented by the outer world that we live in. But it all begins with the inner world. our imagination, how we think, because these activities that goes on within that only you and I know, or whether you know, that's personal. Sooner or later, a lot of contemplation is going to start getting heavy, whereas now the universe, something have to respond to that, and manifestations and things have to come to existence by law, so that you can now experience the things that you're thinking, that you're developing, and other people can share in that experience. Because we bring it into the world, these things, these ideas. So we bring mindfulness into a world that really need it. Like, I need it injected inside of me. That's the real vaccine that they need. They need mindfulness, mindfulness resolution and inoculated inside their body, so they become more, their minds become more clear and functionable.
Yeah.
Without stress, without anxiety, without all the ills that detract or takes away from the human experience.
Now, prior to being the outreach network coordinator, did you have prior work experience prior to then incarceration?
Yes, I have. I'm the type of guy, I like laboring. So I used to work in warehouses. And my work experience was just limited to that prior to my time of incarceration. I wasn't really sure. I was young. I wasn't really sure what I wanted out of life. I didn't have a career, you know, in the form of a seed planted in my mind, ready to be nurtured and blossom. I didn't have that. You know what I mean? That's why I ended up initially where I was, in prison. I had no that sense of direction, right? I'm only human. There's countless of us, the Nahshons, right? At the very beginning. Because the environment plays a role, right? We are products of it, I believe. And sometimes mom and dad can do the best that they can, but their knowledge is probably limited too. So it's like kind of passed down from generation after generation. And if there's lack of education, then it definitely has an effect on the siblings.
Yeah.
And you see what I'm saying? So I'm blessed in a way to be able to see how far I came and how far I rose and how I'm still rising. I see it as a blessing rather than a curse. I used to see it as a curse, you know, being jealous of other people, what they have, and not knowing I had a lot. You know what I mean? I just
Yeah.
wasn't paying attention. Even though I didn't have anything, I still had a lot, but I wasn't paying attention because my eyes was fixated on what other people have and me chasing after that.
And mindfulness also makes you realize how grateful that you should be for everything that you have, even if it is limited. So
Grateful is the key. That's the key word, grateful.
yeah.
Because that's what brings about humility, compassion, you know, not being too fast to move, meekness, humbleness, kindness. It brings about a lot of different associations of different words that has meanings that brings about a sense of goodness, fairness, and it goes on and on and on and on. It got billions of words that associate with each other.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is just latch on to one of them, contemplate on that word, become one with that word, and all other words, antonyms, synonyms, everything start connecting to it. Then you speak it, it becomes you. You become a lovable person. You become a humble person because you're living the definitions of what these words means.
So talking about all of that, now growing up, what were your goals and ambitions?
Oh, I always wanted to be a gymnast. I love gymnastics. I love flipping. When I was young, I used to mattress, flip more mattresses, and I graduated to the food carts where the shopping carts, you turn them to the side and you got a little spring to it, and went to school and Westbury Dragons and made a decision, and it just took all that away from me, you know? But I really want to be a gymnast. I love martial arts. Um, I'm not too much in hardcore sports, as far as football, basketball. That was me. I'm a gymnast type of guy. I like yoga, stretching, and things like that.
All right. So would your life have been different if you'd been practicing mindfulness prior to incarceration?
I'm quite sure it would have. I would have made more conscious decisions. And I can't actually say how my life would have turned out like this. No, because I had to go through some negativity in order to get where I'm at. Imagine me 2 years old, I'm mindful at the age of 2. I don't have no experience. I'm too mindful, I'm too cautious. And I wouldn't, it wouldn't be fair to me. I have to go, we have to go through the experiences. At one point, I'm quite sure that you, at the age of 5, you wasn't mindful. You know what I mean? So mindfulness is a gradual thing. It doesn't come overnight. It's a work in progress. It's an individual thing. You and your own universe, trying to understand and get clarity as to what's going on in relation to others who comes into your life. Sometimes people come in your life and they confuse the hell out of you because you don't understand. Right? So mindfulness, when you begin to understand the concept of it, and then you become more or less like, I only can speak for myself. You're not quick to judge, because we can judge. It's easy to judge because we always comparing ourselves to others. I don't want to be like that, or I'm better than that. I'm glad that we constantly in that type of world where judging is precedent. It's like that's what we all do, but it's hard to get out of it. And
Yeah.
mindfulness is the key to help us get out of that, to experience a new world. Because mindfulness brings us to a new world, literally.
It lets
Because
us observe more than judge.
so what I'm saying, observe it. So what are you observing? You're observing something from a distance, right? Because you're not attached to it, because that's not a part of your thinking. You're mindful of what's going on as to why people are the way they are. But they don't know themselves. So that's a world alone that they're living in, because they're cause and effect elements that exist, because their thinking brings about a reaction, and someone reacts off that, and it goes on and on and on. And that is the world within itself. But we observe it, right? I look at it being on the outside, looking in, while on the outside with mindfulness, right? So we go into that world being mindful, go in, and we see so many things that are going on. You be like that shining light in darkness, because you're looking at people behavior, and you're understanding why they're doing what they're doing, and why they bring about the effects to themselves in the manner in which they do. So mindfulness allows us to be so compassionate and move us to intervene, to try to get that person through enlightenment to understand why he's bringing these things unto him or herself. Because we're compassionate people, we're human beings. That's what human beings are supposed to do when you're mindful. So that's what it's all about, us becoming agents of mindfulness.
How did mindfulness, meditation, and practice help you through different experiences and challenges that you had to face?
Reflection through meditation, right? A challenge is before you. A challenge is before me, right? The first thing I have to do is breathe. You have techniques. The ancient left us techniques behind for us to employ whenever we are facing challenges that brings about anxiety, because when we allow anxiety, frustration comes, it clouds our judgment. Static, noise. So the cognitive process is stagnated. You can't think straight. because we are frustrated. You know what I mean? So it's to me it's simple. Once you practice, it becomes second nature. So the way you're interviewing me and I'm giving you, it's probably a different type of delivery that you probably expected. You know what I mean? Because I know you expect to go down from 1 to 12, but we hitting every point because we're dealing with the next.
Oh, you're answering question 11 already, question 1. So I'm making up some questions
because we started from the now. That's where we
exactly.
start from now, and it brings us, like I said, to every other faucet,
Yeah.
you know.
So let me see.
And if I didn't answer, I'm sorry, if I didn't answer your question, just ask me again.
All right. So do you think that helping others, you had to help, you said like 79 other inmates at the same time as you were learning mindfulness. How did that affect your experience?
Well, the 50 guys, well, myself would be counted as 50, but the 49 souls that was incarcerated with me in Unit 114, which was a network therapeutic program, I seen myself through them, each and every one of them. Is how through mindfulness, it allows you to see others in light of yourself. In other words, if I'm making any sense to you.
Yeah.
Right, because the golden rule is treat someone as you would like to be treated yourself. And that's a hard thing to do. But it takes practice. And through mindfulness, it gives you that discipline. So I was able to be that leader where everyone's able to come to for resolution. That's part of why I asked Professor Zaccarini to adopt the concept, the mindfulness resolution. The resolution aspect has to be there because there's a problem. You see what I'm saying? There's an issue that needs to be resolved. And it only can be resolved through mindfulness. So the Mindful Resolution Project.
Makes
You
sense.
see what I'm saying? Right. So through my experience is what gave me that concept, sharing it with the professor, bringing it together and making this possible. And so the 179 clients that I have out here in the community, it goes back to, like I was explaining to you, that each and every one of them are me. Each and every one of them are me. So I'm disciplined myself to operate in that mode, and it works mechanically. Just think that way, it'll be that way. Because if this guy is without a home, I'm without a home. If he's without employment, I'm without employment. You have to have a real discipline to think that way and act that way and believe in that matter. And I'm at that moment now. I'm at that moment now because of mindfulness placed me in that moment.
So one of my other questions was, how can we make this program and research known on a larger scale? Because I know you're working on so many different projects, but how can we make the mindfulness resolution project known on a larger scale? Because right now it's mainly with Adelphi, and we're trying to, open it up. I know it's only our second year of doing this, I believe. But what are your ideas or your thoughts on how we can make this known to a larger community so people know that they have somewhere to go for help?
Well, I was part of the first semester, right? At the very beginning when it began. And so part of my strategy is to, as an outreach coordinator, is to promote this project. I look at it as a business to me, right? So you have to get people to invest into this business or this project. So individuals who are set for release, like in prison, they have an opportunity to know about this program. That's how you're able the students are able to interview these guys, because they want to know. They know about Adelphi, the mindfulness resolution project in prison. One aspect. We have partners, whereas we're trying to create an index, like perhaps this interview that you and I having, it will be indexed, right, along with a bio, and that index will be made available to employers. Say, for instance, it will be my job to find employers who be willing to sign up for the mindfulness resolution project and explain to them what's it about, right? We have men known as network alumni who receive extensive therapeutic training from network support services, in which they are being interviewed by Adelphi students, highlighting their job set skills and things, etc. But in that fashion, we bring these individuals to a pool of like an index, and the index will be highlighted like with what you may find a title in this interview that you may want to label this as, and you're in placing this in the index. So the public will have access to this index. And being that the Office of Outreach, we have so many partners. A lot of people are becoming aware of the network and the Delphi collaboration of this project. So we have our own website and we have a large audience. So the first semester we had the mindfulness, the first semester, we had one of our board members who is involved in video production. And you probably had an opportunity to see the piece that he put together.
Yeah.
That's promotional. The Office of Outreach used as promotional, meaning that this is what a Delphi network, this is what we are doing. So when people get this information by way of links and whatever, and they look at it, they're going to hear what we are talking about.
Yeah, no, I got to see all of the videos. I got to see that one with all of the students discussing their experience, as well as your interview with Professor Zaccarini. So watching both of those made me like tell her, I was like, I have to interview Nahshon. I want to know more. I really just, your perspective is just, it's different. And I love that.
Thank you. And that's the thing, is like, I'm listening to you. I'm listening to you, right? The feedback that you give, not just about me, but the whole project. But it's called the network effect. That's the effect that we want to have, because it's part of being mindful that not everybody is a barbarian. Not everyone is a bad person. Just listen. Just be mindful of what caused this person to commit a crime. And not everyone may be guilty of a crime. Judgment, like the doctor's professor says, that we have to cease from being judgmental. And this is the main idea of this program, is to get people to become non-judgmental by becoming mindful of themselves in relation to others.
Is there anything that I didn't cover that you want others to know about?
I don't know.
Just because you covered every single, I asked you my first question, you answered everything. So, I mean, that's amazing. There's nothing.
So I guess we covered. I mean, I can go on and on. It's so much, but I guess there'll be a part two someday. I have to see Sebastian. Maybe he can follow up.
He's going to discuss all of your other programs and other like networks that you're working with and working on.
But it's all intertwined, because this is part of my life. It's part of my story. Even my employment, the things that I'm doing for us, helping others, that's all part of mindfulness. So mindfulness has become like, it's intertwined. Whereas I am mindful. It's like you become one with the concept, is what I'm saying. And it becomes easier for you to practice Like, you always have to become one with whatever it is that you're trying to obtain, absorb, embrace. You got to become, because when you become one with it, that's where the power comes. The power of enlightenment, or whatever type of strength that you get from embracing it, right? But also, you can embrace something that's very destructive as well. From not being mindfulness, you're embracing something that's killing you because you're not mindful of it. Let it go.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So that's how life is. We become one with the things that we embrace. We give it life. We give it power. It gives us something back in return, equal. When you embrace it, you embrace destruction, you're gonna be destroyed. That's it. That's the law. You embrace something positive, then you're gonna grow. That's the law. It's just being mindful give us an opportunity to determine what we're going to embrace. Because when you're mindful, you're not going to embrace anything that's going to be detrimental to your health or your growth at all. But not being mindful, the outer of it could be so beautiful that, yes, I'm going to embrace it negligently. I don't care. It just looks so good. I just want it. And not knowing it's tearing you up. The next thing you know, you're crumbling away. Your life is miserable. Have no direction. You lost all sense of direction because of something that you embrace, and you don't want to let go of it because you're not mindful of the effects that it's causing to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome,
For
Victoria.
allowing me to interview you, and thank you for your time as well.
My
And your knowledge.
pleasure. My pleasure. Anytime.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you.
God
You as
bless.
well. Thank you.
All right.